Hi everyone, welcome to In Conversation. Tonight the theme is to do with Shavuot. We're very aware of the story of Ruth and her contribution to the Shavuot story with her journey to Judaism. And we have here Philippa Gabay, who I'm delighted to welcome. She had a career in the media for 10 years before converting to Judaism. So Philippa, would you like to tell us a little bit about how that all started?
It seems like many eons ago now, actually. It was about 16 years ago now. Goodness me. As all good jokes start off, it started with a Catholic girl walked into a bar and met a Jewish boy. And that was really the catalyst for everything. Really, it was kind of that it sounds so reductive, but it was pretty much that simple. I was early 20s, living in London, really living an amazing life, actually. I was working in media, in charge of a huge amount of money and really living it up, going to fantastic restaurants in London, all on expenses. It was really quite a lifestyle, living just off Oxford Street, in a rent-controlled flat, which was just amazing.
Sounds like not much has really changed.
Well, exactly, but it was absolutely amazing living with my best friend. It was just fantastic. Two young girls living in London. It was amazing. And one Saturday night, a friend of mine said, "Oh, come along to this party at a bar in Soho." And I was a bit umming and ahhing and couldn't really be bothered, but I got out there and I went down, and I was introduced to a young man, a friend of hers as well, a mutual friend, and she said, Philippa, this is, come and meet this guy. This is Dr. Fantastic." And I thought that was utterly ridiculously arrogant to be introduced in that manner, and I think I probably told him so. And I think he liked somebody with a little bit of spirit, and I like the fact that he sort of gave as good as he get, and we started dating. But it was within 24 hours that he said to me, there's a problem. And my heart sort of stopped. I thought, goodness me, this could be anything. He's going to prison, he's emigrating, he's gay. But it was actually, he told me that, no, it's more serious than all of that. I'm Jewish. And honestly, I couldn't absolutely for the life of me fathom what the problem would be. And in jest, at that point, I said, I can always convert. So I'd learnt straight away that you should never make any jokes, because the big man upstairs is always listening. And he certainly kept me to my word. And it was a long process, and no disclaimers, but that original guy is now my husband. So I'm going to do a spoiler alert at the beginning, that he was pretty much the catalyst for discovering Judaism. I had learnt about it at school, at my convent school run by nuns. What we learnt about Judaism.
Had you met any Jews in uni, I would think?
Not particularly. I went to Royal Holloway, which is a University of London, but very, very small. And I grew up in the South Coast near Portsmouth. And I think, you would have somebody whose dad was Jewish and they might go off and do a bit of Rosh Hashanah at some point, but certainly no practicing Jews. There's absolutely no Jewish communities down in the South now. Closest one is probably over in Brighton, Hove, but not that we would have known. But all we were taught was that it was about Saturday, there was no bacon, and most Jews lived in London, in Golders Green. So that was the extent of my Jewish knowledge. Really. But I was brought up as, I suppose we'd call a frum Catholic. Church every Sunday. We certainly weren't a family of rosaries and crucifixes, but we were a religious family. Christmas and Easter were always celebrated in the religious way rather than necessarily the more secular way. And even today, my father still goes to church and gets a lot of comfort from the church. So I'd always been brought up with the idea of the religion, and really had always loved God, had really had a connection with God. But I wavered a lot with the New Testament, because there were a lot of questions that I had. And the nuns were not perhaps most forthcoming in answering any questions that I did have. Like when I asked, well, if we eat Jesus every week, how come he doesn't run out? So they weren't particularly au fait with some of the more chutzpahdik questions I would ask. But I'd always grown up sort of with a religion, believing in God and really understanding the value of the community of religion. So
right, so you had that basis. I was going to just, if I can interject. So did you start going out from that point?
yes, we started, literally, it was, you know, fireworks, lightning, thunder, lightning, all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, we did. We started going out. And I think it was the first time that my husband had dated a girl who wasn't Jewish. It was always to him, he was going to marry somebody who was Jewish. But when I met him, he was completely secular, absolutely not doing anything, not keeping Shabbos.
Head over heels in love, obviously.
Well, I can't blame the guy, you know. But I think it was a big step for him. It was a step for him. His family were very resistant. They were not keen at all. But I think because I had that upbringing of a religion and seeing the benefit of religion to a family and to a couple, it wasn't such a massive, strange, bizarre idea that he would want to have a Jewish family, and that was really, really important to him. And so after a while, about 6 months, I said, okay, well, I'll look into Judaism. I'll try and understand, because it's not as if they're a million miles apart. Catholicism and Judaism are not mutually exclusive. You
would know better than me, I have to say. I'm not.
The knowledge, certainly, I mean, the biblical knowledge that I was brought up with is so much a part of what I've learned subsequently through Judaism. I mean, I grew up with the Old Testament and all of the stories. So certainly the Book of Ruth was something that appears in the Bible, in the Christian Bible. So I grew up with the stories of Esther and Ruth. It's just that Catholicism tacks on a whole new section after all of the sort of the death of Moses. So there's just,
I've heard of it. I have heard of it.
I was dealing with the sequel, and like Judaism is like the original movie, you know. But I was in the sequel. I was in the kind of, you know, 15th installment of the Marvel religion.
So you mentioned his family is quite secular, but your family sounds quite religious. So how did they react to this news? At what stage did you broach it?
Well, my parents knew obviously straight away that you know, this guy was a bit different. But I remember it was one day, and my dad was doing the washing up, and my parents were in the kitchen. I thought, this is a good time to actually say, guys, I've been going out with him for a while, but we've really looked into it, and I think I'm going to really look seriously into converting to Judaism. And my dad just turned to me and said, well, it's the same God, it's just doing it in a different way. And that really was their opinion of it. They brought me up to be godly and to believe in God and to believe in the benefit of a religion. And I think they were really, really supportive of the fact that I was going to actually pursue a religious life, even though it is rather barking mad. So they were really, they saw religion in a way that I think we'd all love people to see it, which is actually we're all just following the same path, really. We're just doing it in slightly different ways. So thankfully they were really, really supportive.
Very supportive. That's amazing.
Really supportive.
And his family, how were they about you?
I think when they realised actually that we were going to pursue a life that really was really in tune with what the values that they'd given to their son, they were really, really on board and really supportive, and really supportive through the conversion, which was it's not an easy process, and it's not so straightforward, and it's not like the movies or they show you on the TV. You don't sort of turn up to a few lessons and then they go, please have a certificate. So we did need the support of family, actually, because it's a hard process and it is difficult, exceptionally rewarding, but the families ended up being very very on board with it, and it certainly made our wedding very interesting.
I'm sure
it was.
In particular that you miss? It's been about 16 years now, so.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I suppose there were so many different changes to make, really, you know, from the practical ones of wearing skirts and kissing my jeans goodbye, and of course then subsequently being married, I cover my hair and things like that. But it's such a strange little thing to miss, but I really miss just being able to go out and not have to pre-plan all our food and what we're going to take and how can we eat, and just a minute, we can't just pop into a pret-a-manger and get a sandwich, so we're going to have to, it's maybe not being as spontaneous as I used to be. But now I have 5 children of my own. I think spontaneity may have gone out the window a while ago.
Definitely.
But it's such such a small, tiny thing, because nowadays there's so much, people are celiac, or they're gluten-free, or they have a certain type of diet or allergy. So actually, I'm sure it's no different to lots and lots of people. But just that ability to pop into any great restaurant and eat, that would be one thing. It's such a silly thing. I'm glad it's something so superficial.
because you both had to take a lot on, as you're saying that he was secular, so you both had to learn. And
I say in true Jewish fashion, they got a buy one get one free, because Anthony actually, when we started yes, I love a bargain. It was actually that when we first sort of got accepted by the London-based inn, it was actually my husband that they started with, and I was like, but he's already in the club. It's me, But they said, no, we're going to start with him, because I think often they can find that he was quite happy doing what he was doing, which was pretty much nothing. And oftentimes I think sometimes it can be found that the Jewish partner doesn't really want to do more and doesn't want to take on more. Yeah. And it would make the relationship rather incompatible. So they started really with Anthony. But what he always said was he'd always done Friday nights and lit candles, but had never really been taught why or the meaning of it. And I think perhaps that was just something missing or lacking from his education, or maybe that time, during the 80s. I don't know. I really don't know enough about it. But he just never really understood what he was doing it for, I think. And I think when he started delving into it and really understanding the spiritual meaning of things and why we do what we do, he almost fell in love with his own religion, actually. And for him, a massive step was when he started to wear a kippah out in public. He's a doctor.
Right.
And he said, I don't want to wear it at work because I want to be a doctor. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be a Jew first. I don't want to be people to look at me and see Jew and then see doctor. I think he felt very self-conscious. And then he realized when you do put on a kippah and you go out in London, there's far more strange folk to be looking at. And we're just very straightforward. But it was a huge step. It was a really big step. And both of us had to kind of overcome things that were big changes for us both. And we just took it step by step and did it bit by bit, because there was quite a lot of new things to do.
Right, so I was going to ask you, if it's not too personal or you don't want to answer, that's fine. But was there anything that you really thought, it's really hard to get my head around?
Initially, when the wigs and the hair covering, that was a very difficult thing to understand, especially because I used to go to shul and I used to be looking really intently and saying, that's definitely real hair. Or is that, and I would be like obsessed with trying to work out wig or not wig, wig or not wig. And I couldn't, I suppose like a lot of women, I would say, but it looks so fantastic and it's so amazing and it's so difficult to tell, then I don't understand the concept. And it really took a lot of learning and delving into it for me to really understand what it was about, and that it wasn't for a man and it wasn't for a guy and it wasn't for my husband, but actually it was about the benefits that I would have as a woman. And obviously I didn't really understand that until I did it myself, and also being married now. And I think it was one thing to learn things in a book and theoretically, and then another thing to actually get my hands dirty, as it were, and have to practice it. So I think hair covering was one that was very strange. Sitting in a hut in the middle of autumn was another odd one for Sukkot. That doesn't make sense, especially when the first one I went into honestly looked like a Christmas grotto. Couldn't work it out. Covered in tinsel. It was a little bit strange.
Oh, here.
It was a bit strange. Couldn't work that one out. That's a funny one. I always find that Sukkot and Purim are the most difficult festivals to explain to my friends as well, because they're just barking mad on the surface of it. They're mad.
Was the Sukkot in Israel or was that here?
No, it was in Golders Green. It was quite an interesting experience. But again, you go and you think, oh, on the surface it's so crazy, it's insane, and then you understand. And now I do my own sukkah and I love it, and it's fantastic, and I can't get enough fairy lights. So again, I think it was certainly, Judaism is not one to just be learnt in a book. It is not just a theoretical religion. For me, I had to do it and live it and get into it to kind of understand beauty, a lot of the parts of it. And now, even now, I mean, my children, now bless them, say to me, "Mummy, did you ever eat bacon?" And I say, "Yeah, I did, guys." "Was it disgusting?" I say, "Well, actually, no, it's not. It's really nice." But they say, "So why can't we have it?" And you say, "Well, I don't know, but I know it's not good for me. It can't be good for me spiritually. It's fine physically, but there's so many times when I just have to say, because, I just love it. I just love God. And I think he's told me this way to do stuff, and that's fine by me. He knows better than I do." And it's been, for me, a really wonderful acceptance of a greater power. It's bizarrely very, very liberating to have so many rules.
So on the similar note, as a woman, has there anything that you've come up against, or you felt, and maybe to compare with the two religions, or particularly with Judaism, you felt is sexist, or anything like that along those lines?
I think I remember when I was 8 years old, and I wanted to be an altar server in the church. The priest is there, and then there's younger children, and they help out and they do things. And I wanted to do that, and they said, no, you can't, because you're a woman or you're a girl. And I said, well, I don't really get that, because it's why can a boy pick up a cup and put it over there, but a girl can't? It was very strange. And it was a veneration in Catholicism, very much, that all the priests are men. There are no female priests in Catholicism. Female priests are in the Church of England. The priests can't get married, so there's no Mrs. Priest. There's no family to look at. It was very difficult to connect really with women in it, even though Mary in Christianity is very venerated. And then I came to Judaism, and you see how much women are really. I mean, the Torah does not make any bones about saying it's the women that have driven Jewish history. They got us out of Mitzrayim. It's the book of Ruth. It's not the book of Moshe. It's Esther. It's these amazing women that Judaism has no shakes about saying they're great. They saved Jewish people. So I looked at them when actually it's a real celebration of women. So I may go into the synagogue, and yes, again, it's very similar. It's a rabbi. It's the men who are leading the singing and lifting up the Torah. But I looked at that and thought, but you know what? Look at everything else these guys have to do. They have to go 3 times a day, and they're tying on these tefillin, and they're the ones that have to say the brachot and be on show and do this. If I want to sort of daven at home privately, it's between me and God. No one else knows. And I thought the trust that's put into the Jewish woman is actually enormous. And I really, really liked that. And even going so far as to say about the clothing and changing my clothing, I actually find it so much more empowering to be a Jewish woman, where before I could wear anything, it didn't matter, but I'd worry more about how I looked, or my weight, or all these kind of things. And now it's sort of just covered up nicely. I love clothes, like to look nice.
You always look
nice. But it isn't something I really thank you. It really just isn't something I focus now. And so now this is covered, and my body's covered up. It's just really my personality and what I'm saying that is the important thing, and that's what's listened to. And I find that enormously empowering. I think it's such an amazing thing. And it's often brought up that the bracha that we say in the morning when the men say, "Thank you for not making me a woman." People say, "Is that so outrageous?" But all I hear is I get to say, "Thank you for making me in your image. You've made me a piece of God." But all a man is told, "Well, you're not a woman. So what are you then?" He has to go and find his path. He has to work out who he is, what his role is. I'm told, "You're a piece of God." I'll take that. That's a great religion. I'm a big fan of that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so, a wonderful way to
I actually find it really, I find it incredibly empowering, and it hasn't stopped me in any job I wanted to do, or my friends haven't changed around me or anything. I think it's an amazing, wonderful thing. And to the point when Ruth is someone very close to me. When I was 14, I got confirmed, which is when, as a bit like a bar mitzvah, I suppose, when you choose, you become an adult. And I read the entire Bible, Old and New Testament, cover to cover, because you give yourself a name. You choose a woman who inspires you in the Bible. There's lots of Marys, lots of Esthers. And I read the entire Bible at 14. And the one woman who I said, that is who I can relate to, was Ruth.
Wow.
Because I felt she had such a clarity of purpose. She went against the culture, the norm, what she knew. And she said, but that's the truth, and that is what I'll pursue. So I think even then at 14, I think Hashem knew what he had in store for me. He had it all mapped out. I wasn't listening at that point, but he had it all worked out.
So what's your Hebrew name? Is, have you got a middle name, or?
I'm Ruth Sarah. Lots of converts are Sarah, but then my parents become Abraham and Sarah.
Yeah.
So my dad is Abraham Avinu. So I mean, trump that. When people say, well, don't you know who my dad is? I can say, Abraham. Yeah. What you got? Nothing. So it's, yeah. So my birth parents, my biological parents, under Hebrew halachic law, are not my Jewish parents. It's a bit confusing. But yes, I get to be straight from Abraham and Sarah.
Amazing. I like what you said about that God trusts women. I think that was really, I've never heard that before. That's very, as you say, empowering to say that he trusts us. He knows we can do it. We don't need all the formality, and we can do this and that. It's a really interesting.
I don't need to be seen in shul, and I don't need to go and I don't need to go and double with a minyan. He knows I've got it. He knows that I'm just, it's innately there with us. You know, we have just got this connection because he's made us part of him directly, straight away. These guys have to really probably spend their lives trying to work out, well, what's my role and who am I and what am I doing? We're done.
On a lockdown mode, how have you found work? We've had Pesach, we're coming up to Shavuot. I assume that your husband's working quite a bit. I know that you're working as well. How have you found that? Have you found any strength through what you've learned through Judaism with what you're dealing with at the moment?
I think it's been such an interesting time. I'm a year 3 teacher. I teach primary school. And even at this stage, we're very concerned and very conscious of their mental health and how they're dealing with things and how they're dealing with stress. And so much of the focus has been create a routine, create a structure, give them consistency for my class and for my own children. And for me, that is Judaism. That is what I've learned. That is what I've been given. I don't have a free-for-all. There are certain structures in my day and in my week that I adhere to because of the nature of being Jewish. So even at the beginning of the lockdown, when we were suddenly thrust into this nothing to do whatsoever, which seemed so exciting, I still longed for Shabbos, which people can say, but you don't do anything. But you go, but it's different. It's a different flavor. The stress is off. It will carry on. The news will keep going, but it's my oasis, my calm, my serene box of bubble that nobody can touch. And even now, when I think we're all maybe going a bit stir crazy and it's come on enough already, it's still, I long for Shabbos. I long for Shavuos. I long for that cheesecake, to eat even more food on lockdown. But it's, I think, given me, and I hope a lot of people actually, that time to just really calm it right back down and say, Hashem's got this, okay? It's scary and we cannot underestimate it. And we've lost family, and my husband has been working in intensive care and has seen really up close what this disease can do. But at this time, which is so confusing and so hard to understand, for me to be able to say, this is just in his hands, and I just kind of have to surrender and let that go and just firm up my connections with him. He's obviously trying to tell us something. We've got to try and listen. And for me, it's certainly been a case of the communication of the coronavirus is via our mouths and our breath and our everything that's coming from here. And so I've taken it quite literally just to say, got to be really careful then, even what's physically coming out of me, not my words, get davening, get that back again, get that strong, just be kind. The big slogan's always be kind, and really reinforcing that again, just to say, and to be like my lovely mother used to say, just if you haven't got anything nice to say, don't say anything. And I think maybe I'd lost that a bit somewhere, everyone was an idiot on the roads or everyone else was wrong. And I think I was just being a bit London about everything, and I just really just slowed it back down and calmed it all down and just went, okay, this is it, we've got this, it's okay. And I think that still having that structure of, we have Pesach, we've got something to look forward to with Shavuos, we have Shabbos every week, it's given such a structure to the week. I think it's made it feel a lot less scary, a lot less unknown, because Shabbos will always come and Shavuos will come and we count the Omer, and those things are constant and never change. And a world which is so insane and so hard to understand, it's really special for me to have something so clear to hold on to. And it's been a real source of strength. It really has.
Thank you, Philippa. That's really, really beautiful. I think we can all hear the difference of your journey from where you started. You were in uni, you were in media, and where you are now is definitely the sharp contrast. And where you're settled and where you found yourself. And I think that that's something that can carry maybe some of us also through Shavuot, to hear your story and hear the conclusions that you came to. So really appreciate your time. Take this opportunity to wish you Chag Sameach, Good Yom Tov, enjoy your cheese.
I will.
It's been lovely seeing you.
A real pleasure, and Chag Sameach to everybody, and be well and be safe, and please keep healthy.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.